Hi, and welcome to DisLife Stories. I'm your host, Tony White. This week we have Kimmy, and we're going to talk to her about she has a broken neck and pancreatitis. So we're going to get her story on that. Before we go forward, please hit like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on audio, please hit follow and send us a message on there. And we're gonna go ahead and start. I just got to bring up my list of questions. Okay, so did the broken neck and the pancreatitis happen at the same time?
No, the pancreatitis happened about 10 years after the broken neck or the pain.
Okay. So
The
what
broken neck.
caused the neck injury?
Pardon?
What caused the neck injury?
Uh, I was in a car accident. I don't know if I could call it a car accident because the person who crashed into us did it on purpose, but for all intents and purposes, we're going to consider it an accident. It was a drunk driver, and I was in college at the time. And I just remember being in the back seat watching the headlights flood the back of the front seat, and that's when it happened. The person drove up and smacked into the back of the car I was in and pushed it down the road, and it was a crazy story.
So you were a passenger in the car in the back seat, and was
Yeah.
somebody what T-boned you?
No, he or she plowed into the back of the car and pushed it down the road at a good 55 miles an hour. And then I guess they backed off again and hit us again. And we swerved and almost went off the side of a bridge. And then the person drove off. Yeah.
So after that accident, I assume you went to the hospital and found out you had a broken neck.
I went to the hospital, but they never did any imaging. They just told me it's a sprained shoulder. You have a sprained shoulder from the seatbelt. I didn't find out until July of 2 years ago that I had a broken neck. 3 years ago, actually.
Wow, so how long after the accident was that?
Um, it's been, I have to think about this, 22 years?
Wow. So you went almost 2 decades undiagnosed with a broken neck.
Yes.
And were you having any symptoms
Uh,
when that?
yeah, I did have symptoms for a long time. I have really bad tension headaches because of it. I have my arm started hurting a lot, and I went to do 3 or 4 different PT things that I had to do in order to get an MRI for it, and it was just a nightmare.
So was the MRI what found it?
The MRI confirmed it because I had an X-ray before that. They said that my neck looked pretty bad in the X-ray, but then the neurosurgeon got the MRI. He looked at me and he said, "As gnarly as this looks, I can't do anything for you for the next decade because I guess all of my fingers have to go numb. My entire arm has to go numb before they go in and do any corrective surgery."
Wow, isn't that so? I don't understand that. I can only see it as one of two things. Either it's so risky that they're waiting till the last second, or there's something about the procedure that they have to wait for it to progress to a certain point in order for the surgery to work. Do you know
Um,
what?
they said that they would just have to keep going back in anyway. Um, so it's best to wait until I absolutely have to have it in order to keep me from getting too traumatized by it, physically speaking.
Right. Okay. So once you do have it, somewhere down the line after that, they're going to have to do it again.
Yes. I am going to be permanently dealing with broken neck, basically.
Wow. Is it changed your daily life?
Yes, I am at the point where I can't do very much heavy lifting anymore. I also lost the use of my arms. Well, not, I can't say completely, but I lost it enough where I couldn't even paint, which I'm an artist, so I need my arms to work. Both arms were affected, and it was also from the pancreatitis at the time, too. And I'm just now, after 2 years after the pancreatitis, starting to get to where I can actually even paint. And it's also kind of made it really hard to be able to get up and out of bed. I sleep on one of those adjustable beds now just so I can get up some days. Because before I had the adjustable bed, I would have to literally roll myself out of bed because I couldn't lift my head off the pillow. Um,
Wow.
and there has been many times where I went to go cook and my arm would go numb while I'm trying to pick up a pot. So it's really scary in the kitchen, but I have to be able to feed myself. Um,
Right.
so I've had to rely a lot on my husband for some of the help, and I've had to even have him help me dress some days just because it hurts so bad to lift my arm. Um,
Right.
and so like the, having been diagnosed finally was like, hooray, I know for sure that I'm not crazy, that I did break my neck. It was still bittersweet because obviously I'm permanently affected by it.
Right. And have you had any kind of physical therapy or any kind of medical procedures that have alleviated some of the pains or problems thus far, or are you waiting for the surgery?
I did have several weeks of physical therapy in different parts of a year. The last time I went to physical therapy, I think the therapist was so frustrated with the fact that I couldn't really improve that she's like, I don't know what I can do to help you at this point. And it was the third attempt at it. Like the last time I ever saw her actually was that day because I got frustrated too. My arms weren't working and like getting up was hurting at the time, and it seriously affected my life for the negative. But I think I've come a long way from there where I can actually live like it's a new normal.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Let's see. Let's move on to the pancreatitis. What symptoms led to the diagnosis?
So 10 years ago, well, it's been more like 12 years ago now. I actually got my first bout of pancreatitis. I was living in Louisville, Kentucky at the time, living my healthiest life actually. Going on all like I would walk to work and I didn't have a vehicle, so like I walked everywhere. And one day I just started feeling really sick to my stomach. I had to vomit a lot. And I felt like I had pneumonia actually. So I had my friend pick me up and take me to the hospital. And they told me, "Have you ever had pancreatitis?" And I was like, "No." And they said, "Well, now you do. So we're going to have to keep you, and we're gonna put you on this heart monitor. We're gonna put you on IV antibiotics, stuff like that." And for the next 5 years after I got through that bout of pancreatitis, I was fine. And then I got put on a medicine and that medicine caused me to go into pancreatitis like 5 years after that. But luckily, it wasn't very bad. It wasn't acute, so I could take care of it at home. And then I want to say 2 years ago actually was the worst of it all. I almost died from it. I was in the hospital 3 times in 9 months with it, a collection of 28 days or so. And the first hospital stay I actually did, like, kind of come outside of my body and look down and was like, I'm looking down at myself. And it's one of the most painful things you could ever go through. It's like,
Mentally?
it's not just mentally, physically speaking, it's like very, very painful. It's one of the considered the most painful illness you can have whenever your pancreatitis is or pancreas is affected by something. Like, I can imagine that cancer feels the same way. I do have an increased risk of cancer because of it. Uh, but the biggest thing is it felt like somebody was reaching into my belly and just squeezing so hard that it burned, and it literally would take my breath away. Um, and I couldn't eat for a long time while having it. So over the course of that 9 months, I lost like 70 pounds because of it. So, like, it affects more than the broken neck does, actually.
Right. Well, I can imagine. Can you tell me? I mean, I've obviously heard of the pancreas, but I don't know what pancreatitis is technically. Can you explain that?
Pancreatitis is when your pancreas is inflamed or infected. Um, it'll start sending out enzymes which are supposed to help digest food, and according to my doctor, it can kind of digest your outside of your stomach. Like, the enzymes will start breaking down your other organs and such. And uh I'm trying to remember what the name of the particular enzyme is, but if it's more than maybe 500, you definitely got pancreatitis. That needs to be hospitalized. It's, I think it happens a lot when you are a heavy drinker. And I don't drink anymore myself, but even just a little bit can cause you to go into pancreatitis. So that's why I quit drinking altogether.
Right.
And it's basically no bueno.
Right. Do you know what caused yours the first time around?
Actually, it's still a mystery. And I recently I was like, I can't obsess over this anymore, trying to figure out why. So I basically put it into God's hands. And I told my
Right.
doctor, I don't want to, if I'm meant to know, I'll find out, you know? So
Right.
we don't know exactly what caused my particular pancreatitis. We don't know very much about it at all. I went to a specialist in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and he said that there was no scar tissue, which is very unusual considering how acute the pancreatitis was. So I have
Oh, wow.
absolutely no scar tissue to even help figure out what could have caused it.
Wow. Has your diet or lifestyle habits changed as a result?
I am I'm working through weaning off different kinds of foods that affect my blood sugar. Like, I'm pretty sure the pancreatitis actually caused me to have diabetes because I didn't have diabetes until after.
Right.
I At the time I was in the hospital, my A1C was 14, which is the highest on the scale you can get. Like, if you look at blood sugar meter. When you're trying to get your glucose, it will only read high. And I have changed so many ways, and it took me about 2 years, which I want to say was in April, to start seeing myself get better at all. And I mean this year, because it affected so many different things that I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to deal with this again. And I've got my A1C down to 7.1 officially so far, which is really, really hard to do after getting that high.
Right.
And I'm thankful that I actually lived through that, because not a lot of people live through having an A1C of 14 for a prolonged amount of time.
Right. Yeah, you are lucky. How do you manage both conditions at once? Are there conflicting treatments or needs?
Well, the thing that I actually started doing was I went to counseling and I learned how to cope better with it. I'm going through a process called EMDR. I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's been very effective for me. And I'm figuring out that a lot of the reasons I keep getting sick is because of childhood trauma. Um, And it's been very difficult pinpointing what foods to eat and what kind of physical activity I can do. The biggest thing that gets me through is going into the forest and taking pictures. Like, it's not just good for the physical body, but it's good for the mental. It's great for the spiritual if you're into that. And so I basically use that as an excuse to keep doing better. And what's really great is ever since I started feeling like I was getting better, I was able to go up the side of a mountain for the very first time in my life, like 2 years after the fact. So
It's
it's been a lot of hard work and effort put into it. I'm trying to continue to shrink my body so I'm feeling better. I'm not trying to look better. I just want to feel better. It's very hard to deal with both at the same time, but I just take it one day at a time, basically.
well, which condition has been more difficult for you and why?
The pancreatitis has been the most difficult because I know why my neck is broken, but not knowing the why of the pancreatitis has hit me really hard. And for a while there, I was dealing with ideations of, suicide. I don't want to commit suicide, so I went into the EMDR and have been working really, really hard to basically process the things that are weighing me down in order to cause me to be physically sick. Because I guess I'm living proof that mental and physical are basically attached at the hip.
Yeah, well, I'm a big, huge believer. I 100% believe the physical health affects the mental health, and the mental health affects the physical health.
Yeah, it's like a cycle that you get stuck in, and it really stinks.
It can. It can, especially when you get mired in. What's something people often misunderstand about either or both conditions?
Can't say, but I can say this, that a lot of people do tend to have pissing matches about the pain. My pain is worse than your pain. For instance, my brother-in-law did something to his shoulder and his neck not too long ago, and I was actually helping him move with my husband, and he moved down to Tennessee. That's where I climbed the mountain at. And he just kept going on and on and on about how his neck hurt, and like nobody understands how his neck hurts. And I kept looking at him like, are you really gonna say that in front of me, knowing I have a broken neck? And I just told him, you're gonna have to let yourself rest. You're gonna have
Right.
to give your body a chance to heal itself, or you're gonna make it worse. And I think
Yeah.
it did get through to him because he was like, he went and rested the next day after I said that. So I'm glad to know that I have a little bit of influence in that regard. But like
Right.
that's a big thing people do when it comes to pain is they misunderstand the fact that other people feel pain too and how it affects them and such. And then they'll turn around and be like, "Oh, well, my pain is worse than yours," when pain is actually subjective to the person who's dealing with it.
Right. Yep. Uh, who or what has helped you cope the most during recovery?
Uh, if I listen to my counselor myself,
You know,
because but the thing is, you have to help yourself because nobody else is going to help you. That's the biggest lesson
right.
that I have learned because one of the things that I tried to get was a home health aide while I was recovering from the pancreatitis. And it just kept getting really, really frustrating for me because the nurse even said that I needed help when she came and assessed me. So I ended up filling out the form like 3 or 4 different times. And finally, I was like, by the time I finally get help, I'm going to have finished cleaning my house because my
Right.
house reflected the fact that I was ill. My house reflected the fact that I was in pain. And also, I mean, of course, there's the big part, the depression that comes along with being sick. And
Yep.
my house was really, really, I couldn't call it like hoarder levels yet, but it was getting there. And I just
Right.
snapped one day. I was like, I can't live like this because that's my dad. Basically, my dad was like that when he was alive. I was like, I don't want to live like this. So I ended up doing most of the work myself. And it took me a year to chip away at the mess. But I'm almost at the point where I'm comfortable having visitors again. And I'm very glad that I was able to do it because it basically was kind of like a balm to me. It was a sense of accomplishment, especially after having lost a lot of the use of my arms for a minute there. In fact, I even lost some of the use of my legs, so it was really, really awful. And if I hadn't have pushed myself to do better, I wouldn't have recovered. And nobody did that for me. My doctor, I had to fire my entire team of doctors from when I was dealing with the pancreatitis, and I switched to a person that actually was treating me right after I had the broken neck, and she took me back, even though she was full on patients, and she remembered me from 20 years prior. And I hadn't looked back, and she's been amazing to work with me. I want to call her a big boost, and then my counselor has been a big boost, but they're basically supports for the bigger picture.
Right. Okay. Have these experiences changed your outlook on life or your relationships?
I would say so, yeah. For a long time, my faith was very shaken, and this experience has proven to me that there's a bigger picture than just me here on earth, that there's a higher
Right.
power. Um, because I don't think if I had continued down the road of my faith being shaken, I don't think I could have gotten as better as I have. That's pretty much it there.
Okay. What do you wish more doctors, friends, or family understood about what you're going through?
I would say compassion would be the biggest thing. Like people need not just like I can't say understand as much as compassion because having compassion for other people actually means considering what they're going through. Having compassion and empathy, it's very important that people learn to have that empathy for people who are going through this, to be able to, you know, be a support for somebody you might care about. And you have to be open-minded about it as well. You can't assume that just because one person has a broken neck that it's going to be the same experience for somebody else who has a broken neck. Because I'm very
Right.
lucky that I'm even able to walk and still be able to move, and you know, because I could be paralyzed from that car wreck, and I could also be still bedridden from the pancreatitis. But it helps so very much to have found people, especially people on the Twitch community. My God, like the amount of people who have been very supportive on the Twitch community for me, it's been amazing and eye-opening at the fact that there are people who are still good on this earth.
Yeah, people can still be kind.
Yeah. So that's been the biggest thing.
Okay. What advice would you give to someone who's been diagnosed with either broken neck, spinal injury, or pancreatitis?
The only thing I could think to say is try to give yourself grace when it hurts, because giving
Right.
yourself grace is just as important as other people giving you grace, if not more. You have to be able to say, hey, I'm not okay right now, and that's okay. Because people are not going to be okay. Like, and anytime they go through something big that's not so good, it's okay to say, hey, I'm not okay. It's okay to be like, I'm in such massive amounts of pain that I can't think straight. It's okay to admit to yourself, hey, I've got a problem with this pain and I need help. Like you've got to be willing to be able to talk about it with other people as well. And you have to
Right.
advocate for it yourself.
Yes, that's very important. I had to advocate for myself a lot when I went through my experience. Is there anything you've discovered about yourself through this journey that surprised you?
Yeah. I figured out that I was holding myself back with my art because I was afraid to open up. And ever since I started going through my journey, and I mean, getting past the part where I'm weak and all that stuff, I started putting my pain and my sadness and all that into my art, which I was extremely afraid to do because that is vulnerability. You know, that's showing that I'm really scared, that I'm really sad or whatever. It's really hard to show that to other people when you want to look strong, but it's when
Right.
you actually open up about it that you realize how strong you actually are. And I think that it's very important that I actually experience these things, even if it hurt, because my art has just gotten so much better for it. I have people calling me very well respected among the Twitch community, especially, which is shocking because I'm not trying to be. I'm just trying to share my artwork and this world that I've built over the last decade or so, trying to, I mean, I would call it a little bit of disassociation via trying to make a story. I have this whole fantasy world that I'm working on that I'm hoping to play as a campaign one day for tabletop. And I'm doing not
Right.
just the visuals, I'm doing the music, I'm doing the writing, I'm doing all of it. And I feel like I have opened myself up so much more as an artist after learning how to get past the fear of opening up.
Well, I tell you what, opening up when you're afraid to is strength in and of itself. One last question for you. What keeps you going on the hard days?
I have to think about that one because there's a lot. I want to say the biggest example is my husband because I know how much he loves me. I know how much he cares about my feelings. I know how much he hates what I'm going through. And he has been a huge pillar in my cornerstone, basically. And I'm very grateful for him. He did have a little bit of a freak out, of course, at first, but it's brought us closer together with both of us kind of going through this at the same time because he's experiencing his wife being really sick. I'm experiencing being sick, and there's not much either one of us could do about it, but having him around has been very beneficial to my physical and mental, as well as some of my spiritual health.
Okay, that's important. Are you type 1 or type 2 diabetic?
On paper, I am type 2, but I am finding out there's more than like 10 different types. And I think that mine actually developed from a sickness which is not type 2 at all.
Right.
I don't remember what type it was, but I want to look more into it because it would be very beneficial to know all the different types and say how that might affect how my body takes the insulin and the medicines that help with the insulin resistance I have. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the reason I ask is because I'm type 2 diabetic. My brother is type 1. Now, I don't shoot insulin after meals, but I take metformin and I shoot a long-acting insulin in the morning. And I just wanted to mention to you, I don't know, you're going to have to clear it with your doctor. I would suggest clearing it with your doctor before taking any action on it. But I brought my A1C from 6.9. Now it's at like 5.6. And that is slowly, the only thing I changed was I went on that 12-hour fasting diet. So I'll eat from 7 or 8 a.m. until 7 or 8 p.m. And then that's it. And that has, I mean, because I was trying to eat healthy and it wasn't lowering, you know, my A1C. And I was like, all right, I got to eat healthier. I ate healthier. It wasn't lowering my A1C. But uh, as soon as, I mean, now I eat fast food. You know, I can eat 3 meals of fast food during the day and my A1C at the end of 3 months is still going to be under 6 because I'm taking that 12 hours out where it lets the body, well, you're insulin resistant, but it lets the body pump some insulin in. So
Yeah.
I just, might be worth trying if you're
I
struggling to get it down.
yeah, I was actually looking into that, but luckily for me, we did find the medicine that does help with my insulin resistance. I'm on what's called Farxiga. I don't know if you've heard of it. It was a
No.
big risk to take it because it can cause pancreatitis, but um, it has been immensely helpful in getting my A1C down. It's a medicine that
Oh,
causes
okay.
it has your extra blood sugar going out through your urine. Um,
Oh, okay.
so it's basically a diuretic pill, I guess. And if I said that correctly, I hope I'm
You
not talking
did.
about diarrhea. Um,
No.
but yeah, that's been extremely helpul in helping me to be able to accept the insulin my body produces, along with I'm on what's called U500 insulin, which is 4 times concentrated or 5 times
Oh,
concentrated, because I was taking such massive amounts of insulin, and the more insulin you take, the less effective it is. So if you have it just
right.
pulling in where you injected, it's only going to give you like a fraction of the benefits of it. And I was taking like 200 plus units of the, I think it was Novolog, and then I switched to the insulin that I'm on now. And boy, if I don't take that insulin, because that stuff could cause you to go very dangerously low real fast, as I have learned.
Right.
And that's even with taking 5 more units or something like that, because the units are in fives on the U500, and taking even 5 after the doctor says, hey, take 5 more. It can, like, I've experienced some dangerous lows over the last few days, actually, because we're adjusting my insulin based on the fact that I've been more active and my diet has changed. I've actually quit soda. That was hard.
Uh, yeah, it
So
is.
it's I've just been on the right track lately with the way that my body has been responding to the insulin. And I'm so very thankful for this medicine that came, because we've been looking for years for such
Right.
medicine. And yes, I have been looking into fasting. But the interesting thing is I don't do it on purpose, but I already do fast.
Right. That's how I started, actually. I was
Yeah,
already doing it just because I had the cancer and I was waiting for surgery and I just wasn't hungry. I was in so much pain, I wasn't hungry. So I wasn't eating but twice a day anyway. So I just continued that and it worked out for me. So,
that's good.
well, thank you for coming on. This is going to help a lot of people. And to the people out there, please share some comments for Kimmy. Let's show her some support. And if you're going through this too, you can empathize a little. And please come back for the next episode. We look forward to seeing you guys. And thank you again, Kimmy.
No problem.
All right, everybody stay safe.